Hello and welcome to ETAuto. Automotive industry probably reeling under one of the worst phases. But the two motor shows, component show and the vehicle show, has shown the future, which is electric and BS6. That's what has been happening. But the back room has been ready and they have supported in BS6. How is it going to be for electric vehicle? Welcome to ETAuto, Mr. Jain. You are the president of Component Manufacturers Association. We have seen at the motor show that the focus is electric. How the component industry is now ready?
So Nabil, let me kind of paraphrase what the president of SIAM said yesterday at the inaugural. And he said basically that when the going gets tough, you're right, and the tough gets going. And that's basically what we have demonstrated. I think it's a true case of solidarity, resilience of the component industry. I'm very happy to say that at this expo, we have got almost about 25% more space. So 60,000 square meters has actually been put out. And I think the participation has been tremendous. We've also got extremely strong support by all our OEMs, and all their top managements have actually visited us since yesterday. And we also expect for the next 2 days, the same kind of visits. Now, particularly to your question on EV, I think there is an interesting development because future mobility, we know that there's going to be sustainable, clean technologies. From an EV perspective, there's localization challenges, there's challenges on electronification. So as ACMA, we've actually put up a specific pavilion, which is also showcasing EV competence as well as startup competence. So it's the first time when startup companies, EV companies have actually come together, created a pavilion. And this is also kind of talking about the future where a lot of the traditional component manufacturers can see the potential how to collaborate with startups towards the new technologies.
We have seen the capacity utilization has been very low in component and entire automobile industry. What kind of job losses do you estimate in auto component industry? I met last time, but then there was no calculation. What is now?
No, I think we had given a figure. We said that almost about 1 lakh were at one point of time, and that when I said was probably because of August last year. However, I think going
1 million.
No, we had always said, and I want to clarify, that there was a potential for 1 million because the downturn was about 20%. However, only 1 lakh, 100,000 jobs were actually been reported within the component industry. But I'm extremely confident that in the next basically few months going forward, if we basically get an uptick, not only these 100,000 jobs will basically be regained, but we would have a much more further employment potential.
But looking at the situation, we have seen the passenger vehicle, your customers or the main driver of the industry continue to pose challenge in terms of sales. Commercial vehicle industry is completely down over 30%. Passenger vehicle continue to remain in negative. Two-wheeler is in negative. So how do you see the situation to be improving? And the assessment you made much earlier, I don't see the situation improving any better since August or September.
So exactly my point that our assessment, and I think in ETAuto itself, I had actually put out that we see a recovery happening in H2. Primarily, if you see the Q4, which way we are currently of this financial year, there may be certain better wholesale numbers because of the pipeline filled in by our OEMs of the BS6 vehicles. And I'm talking about across segment. Pascar would be lesser, maybe two-wheeler would be more. But I think we have 1st April BS6 coming in, and they may actually impact revenues as a wait and watch situation, may impact numbers on the Q1. So we expect Q1, Q2 to be slow. However, we all are at least optimistic and hoping that there would be some recovery in Q3. I think the government of India has also taken fact that economic measures to promote again growth, bring back this growth is extremely vital. And hence we expect that Q3, Q4, H2 of the next financial year, we should have a recovery. And hence I said that we should be future ready because auto industry has always been cyclical. So you have to understand that this, of course, has been impounded. The cycle has been prolonged because of various other reasons which has happened. So it's not just a natural cycle. However, I think it is not going to continue forever. It's also not going to be the last downturn we are witnessing. So we are at least optimistic for this next financial year on H2 to have certain recoveries.
Today, the Minister for Road and Transport said that the scrappage policy is on its way. It is going to be there in next 15 days. How do you think this will change the market scenario?
I think we, as the component industry, are extremely happy. Honorable Minister Gadkari is also not just the minister for road transport and highway, but also for MSMEs. And as you know, that the auto components are largely MSMEs. So I was extremely delighted to hear that they are fast tracking this scrappage policy. As I said, the government is extremely sensitive about getting the economy back on track. The auto industry has to get back on track as well if the economy has to go back, just because it has a massive impact on the economy, right? We are 49% of the manufacturing GDP. We contribute to almost 7% directly to the GDP, and also the biggest GST tax collectors. So in that sense, any policy which facilitates the auto industry revival is an extremely welcome move. And scrappage policy, we are just waiting for the announcements. And once the announcements are there, we can actually then estimate what could be the better recovery impact.
Has the vehicle manufacturer, especially in commercial vehicle space, reached out to the component maker for rescheduling the production? Because we have heard that suddenly a lot of pre-buying demands have come out for commercial vehicles, but because of the earlier plan to reduce or cut the production, the vehicles are not available. Some fast moving vehicles are not available. So is there any communication from the vehicle manufacturer to redo it, or some kind of communication?
I think what you're talking is mainly on the demand for the BS4 vehicles, but I think most of the customers, rightly so, have already switched on to the BS6 production. And I think if you were to see, maybe last quarter, Q3, November, December, right? I actually went on record and said that's the best time to buy vehicles. Please go and buy vehicles, right? And I think now the transition, they're already planning it out. And I think that we are getting schedules from the BS6 point of view and not the old vehicle. So I think that's every customer planning out, and rightly so, because we have a deadline to meet.
So we don't see any change there in BS4, because I heard from market sources that there is huge pre-buying demand coming up, but because of the time now, probably there will not be any change. BS6 going to be there next set of production. What is the sentiment? What kind of volume change you have seen when you are producing for BS6? Is it as good as it was in BS4, or is there some slowdown seen there, or some conservatism shown there by the manufacturer? Is there? Can you give us a sense on this?
As I said, I think the BS6 vehicles, in some segments, there is going to be a pipeline which will be filled in because the inventory corrections, and they need to basically get it all to their retail partners. So that's basically what it is. And I think in Q1, once it is launched, I think we actually will have a good idea how the future forecasting and schedulings will happen. So that's, I think, a wait and watch situation. But as of now, what we see is basically BS6 pipeline getting filled in on the retail.
We had Japanese dominance in Indian automobile market. Looking at the vehicle side, also similarly, we saw dominance of Japanese in component space, also European like Germans. Now we have seen influx of Chinese manufacturers coming up. ACMA has already dealing with the strong influx of import from China. How do you see the scene changing? Because even in export market, they will be competing with you because of their strong upcoming presence in India.
I think ACMA is committed to the Make in India platform. And we have been very clear that we welcome competition as long as it promotes Make in India, it promotes localization. And if that's localization, if that means bringing in more suppliers in, I think there is a lot of competence in the existing suppliers. And I think I also can say that a lot of the new players, new entrants who have come in, irrespective of nationality, be it Koreans, be it the Chinese, be it the Europeans, be it Japanese, they've also basically kind of done their due diligence on the existing existing supply chains, and the existing suppliers have basically got the orders to support the new launches from the new vehicle. So as long as they are basically making in India, as long as they're having the localization, I think the Auto Component Manufacturing Association welcomes it, and also the competitiveness it will enhance much more.
We have seen traditionally Chinese players were strong in aftermarket space, especially the feature segment, like your car gizmos and all. There they were very strong, and they were not taken very seriously. There was a question of quality when things were coming from China. With car becoming popular, made in China cars, and a lot of good OEMs coming up, do you think the component manufacturer from China will have a better say in OEM supply chain also?
Okay, so let me first clarify that I think when you say made in China car, those are actually cars which are produced in India. So they're probably Chinese brands which are made in India.
Yeah.
And also they probably would have components which are made in India, hence the make in India concept. Looking into your aftermarket, I'm very happy that you asked me this question. I think ACMA has always been propagating that for aftermarket, which is also a sizable revenue for the Component Manufacturing Association, we need to propagate actually safety standards. We are also demonstrating in this Auto Expo Safer Drive campaign, which is talk about genuine parts to be used so that we are getting road safer, vehicles safer, and less fatalities. Now, we have also had a very, I would say, long-standing request with the government to actually unify our GST rate, because from 28%, which is 40% of the components, 18% or 60%, so we have always requested, and that would not OEM, there will not be any revenue loss because we are intermediary companies. However, in the aftermarket, I think it's imperative because that will enhance the competitiveness of the aftermarket. Also, this reduction in GST will give a better cash flow management to the MSME sector. And this overall would actually enhance the safety and the competitiveness of the industry from any imports which are probably not in the interest of nation.
We have seen huge deficit in terms of automotive component business between India and China, in favor of China, and it's a huge gap. ACMA has been talking about it for a long time. They are trying to bridge this gap. What is your now target, and do you think things are going to be better, or it is going to worsen further?
So you're right. I think it's not just now, but also I think there has been ACMA has been about $57 billion, industry last year. Also, if you were to say in $57 billion, I think 15 billion was actually the exports. But on the other hand, 17 billion was also the imports. So about 2 billion, we actually had a net import. But that's been a traditional model like this. We are aware that recently, because of these technology trends changing in terms of electronics, also in terms of devices, and maybe also certain Chinese companies coming in a lot aggressive in the aftermarket, this gap from the Chinese players have actually been the fastest grower import in this. We hope and we keep on pushing our exports. I think after BS6, going forward, a lot of the OEM component makers will also have a global export opportunity. And we are also mindful that for the economy to grow, we really need to push onto the exports. So imports will happen. I'm not saying imports will not happen, but the intent of basically mitigating any import is to actually keep on propagating exports. So exports also has been growing, and we have actually a good components also getting exported to developed countries like US, like to Europe, as well as, to ASEAN. But I think we need to do a lot more on the export front.
Which are the parts you think is a great opportunity for anybody who wants to export out from India, and which are the regions apart from US, Europe, and African countries and SAARC countries?
So there are many champions which are already prevalent in the export this thing. Like for example, casting and forging, a lot of the products are actually been exported out from India. But if I were to look at in a more holistic way, I think we need to look at our strengths first to get global quality standards and again specifications which would meet the export criteria. So there are multiple companies, multiple product portfolios which are actually going in from the export front. But I think if I were to say that which has most potential, I think that most of the OEMs would actually be able to tell, and also it depends on the capacities where it will be from global perspective.
With BS6 coming up, do you think that the valuation of exports will increase for component maker, and what do you see it by 2025? How do you see it?
No, I think as a global, I would say, content, if BS6 comes in and the way it is coming, I think for the component manufacturers an opportunity, because the value add of the component manufacturers will improve. Also, there will be more opportunities to localize post the BS6 phase, because right now there could be certain import content which will be going for localization. If you look at the 25 targets, I'm not giving you an export target, but I think fundamentally we should be in sync with our India economic target. And the India economic target, as we all very well know, is an aspirational target to become a $5 trillion economy, in which, if we really need to do, as I mentioned before, automotive needs to play its part. And for that, I think 1.2 trillion needs to be actually contributed by the manufacturing. So hence, we need to have an accelerated growth curve. And with so much basically happening in terms of the ecosystem, I think there are multiple opportunities. I think the component manufacturers' entrepreneurship spirit is also to be complemented, because what we have seen that to convert disruptions to opportunity, it is this entrepreneur spirit, it is this whole innovation spirit which actually drives through. So I'm pretty confident that the Component Manufacturers Association and the component industry will take this task as a challenge and convert it to a success.
One last question. You're talking about 5 trillion economy. Automotive industry has a long wish to achieve 5 million passenger vehicles sales in India. When do you see that happening first?
In the future, I think. So slowly and steadily will happen. I think it will happen in the future. I think that's very, very clear. Now, when and how, I think it is a junction of the economic principles, the macroeconomic principles, and also the readiness of our industry.
Do you think with this current prolonged slowdown that 5 million passenger vehicle dream has further gone afar?
Surely, we will have to see. I have no idea, but as I said, in the future, we will definitely cover this dream aspect.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for talking to ETAuto.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching ETAuto.